Welcome to this episode of Barrels and Business. As always, I'm your host, Jay Green, and my job here is to bring you an hour or so of tangible tips and tools of how you can grow and scale your business and talk some shit about the surf. I have found this guy just loitering around in the corner pockets of Coolangatta, trying to use that as a co-working space. This amazing man, marketing maven and founder of Consulting Unleashed is none other than John Logar. John is a serial entrepreneur, business strategist, marketing maven, sales process maestro. He coaches digital marketing agencies and consultants. He's inspired by entrepreneurship and he fucking loves marketing and sales even more. Now, he's not a surfer, he says, but we're going to let him by because he is a sup rider and he can be found just down here at the alley, being that annoying one that's like far out catching
We catch all
everything.
the waves. We catch all the waves.
It's like, really? You
we don't miss a wave.
greedy person.
We see them coming before you do. Like, what am I supposed to do? I see the wave before everybody else.
I know.
So,
well, look,
yeah.
As long as you share a few and it, like, hopefully you end up at Lacey's and it takes you a long time to
you don't want to
paddle
downwind.
yourself
You don't
all
want
the
to
way back.
downwind. Yeah, absolutely. No. So, yeah.
Well, we've talked about this for a while,
Yeah.
but we finally got you here, like, because you were all the way up the road.
Literally a 5-minute drive.
Yeah. So, how long have you been here on the Gold Coast now? Because you were like...
I'm stuck here.
Yes.
I'm stuck. So COVID hit us, pandemic hit us in March of last year. Had nowhere to live. We actually...
We both had nowhere to live in March last year while we were in Melbourne.
Most of my life has been in the United States. So between Austin, Texas and Los Angeles and also San Diego. And unfortunately came home to look after family and couldn't go back. So I've been here for now a little over a year. Mm-hmm. It's great to be back in Oz. I'm originally from Melbourne, and
Aren't you glad when we were in Melbourne that weekend, when we both were like, we can't fly anywhere after this?
Yeah.
You didn't say, you know what? I'm from Melbourne. I'm going to stay here. What made you make the decision to go? You know what? Currumbin it is.
Well, family in Queensland. So I went through the lockdown for 3 months to look after family members, and then I couldn't live there anymore. Like being with family, thought got to find our own space. So yeah, and I thought I'll go down to the coast. I mean, what better place than what's behind us? Yeah. And I thought it's probably been an interesting sort of time to be in one place and not travel around. Like I've literally lived out of a suitcase for 6 years, and to be in one place, I kind of enjoyed the stability. But at the same time, I kind of miss home as well, even though this is the original home.
So what do you class as home?
Wherever I am, basically. Yeah. Wherever my suitcase is, that's home, wherever my suitcase is. But ultimately, the US is home. Yeah. So that's where most of the people I work with, most of the areas that I do a lot of speaking, I do a lot of events overseas. And but Australia's home. It's really weird. I started the business in Australia and it took off in America. And so then it forced me to go and spend time in that market. And then I got to love living there and we started, looking at homes and all that sort of stuff. And then I did a lot of jumping back and forth. And then I got really tired of doing a flight every 2 weeks to the US. Then I thought, it was like, that was a commute. Yeah. So, and the
it's only 14 hours to LA.
Yeah. So the saving grace of that 14 hours is nobody can text you, nobody can email you, nobody can touch you. I didn't do any work. I would never do any work on a flight.
Oh, really?
For me, that was just like, binge the movies, watch Game of Thrones, go through, read all the books that you wanted to read. It was just clean space. Yeah.
Oh, I was the opposite. If I had to make a PowerPoint or a presentation or a keynote, I would wait until I was flying to, which used to drive the organizers that got me to come speak crazy because they were like, but you're arriving 2 days before and we haven't seen your stuff. And I'm like, yes, I make it on the plane. It's the only place. Yeah. It's like,
I can't work on a plane. I've tried many times, but I just can't do it.
Zone.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, because I like to travel with a level of comfort. It's my entertainment, it's my bedroom, it's my dining room, and I just get to share a bathroom with 380 passengers. So it's like my little space. Yeah. And it's quiet. apart from the buzzing of the aircraft, I get to do all the things that normal people get to do when they're not working. So and then I don't turn the internet on a flight. That was the worst thing that ever happened. My first experience of Wi-Fi on an airline was with Virgin America, traveling from LA to New York. Was the first time they'd ever had Wi-Fi on a plane. I was on that plane. Pilots all excited, captain saying, "Hey, we got Wi-Fi. This is going to be really cool." 10 minutes in, the Wi-Fi crashes. 10 minutes in on the first flight. And then it was really weird. All the people around me start complaining about the fact there's no Wi-Fi. And it's like, dude, 10 minutes ago it didn't exist, right? And now you're complaining. So I never turn the internet on when I'm flying. No. Ever. So
I never do either. And I used to say, oh no, my flight didn't happen, didn't work. Usually they'd want me to be online. Like, can you be on a call? I'm like, I can't run a sales team call while I'm in the air. Like, that's just rude. But there's over China, there's no Wi-Fi when you're flying over China.
Yep.
And I think over some of the United Arab Emirates as well, like the UAE, you can't. So there's often when I was flying from Bali to Europe, it's like, no Wi-Fi here. Yeah. But it's, for some reason, I have a struggle with writing. I'm dyslexic, and it's a thing. But you get me on a plane, I can punch out. It's like a whole nother person just comes on in and takes over.
Different environment. Air conditioning. Away you go.
It's crazy. So when did you start SUPping then? Because I'm guessing Austin, Texas, not a great deal of SUPping.
Well, we've got a lot of lakes and rivers in Austin, Texas. I actually started SUPping at Redondo Beach in California. And then when I got back to Australia, because I live at Currumbin, there's this beautiful creek there that's wide open. And I kept on looking out, because I actually kind of live in the rainforest overlooking things. And I kept on seeing people paddleboarding all the time, thinking, I live here, right? It's like, it's my backyard. So lo and behold, there's paddleboarding places around where you get custom board design, all that sort of stuff. So I started doing my research and got into it, went and spoke to a few people, grabbed a few boards. And the guy who I bought my board off, he literally, puppy dog, said, look, this is not your board. Try it. You like it? I'll make you one, right? And so I took it and I held on to it for like 3 weeks. And I thought, I'm not giving this back. But he says, no, I'll make you, a new version of this board, a new version of board. So yeah, great, I've got a new board. But then it was like a journey.
Did you put your logo on it?
No, I didn't. I didn't do that. Tax deductions, yeah.
Look at this thing.
I know. I didn't put the logo on it.
Skateboards with logos.
But, I got really confident really quickly, and then just started heading out to surf. I wasn't ready to do the surfing thing, but I just went and did it anyway. Fell on my ass a million times. And but then all of a sudden it kicks in like it does for anything like that. And now it's like I get to see the waves coming. I get to move myself into the position of groups of waves. I get to read it better than people who've been surfing for years, and I get to steal their waves.
Yeah.
And I can surf anywhere. That's the cool thing about it. One of those people.
One of those people.
So we get a stick. We can ward people off.
Like,
not worried. We're not worried about sharks, right? We're already on top of the board. We're already standing up, and that's the other thing is I don't have to do a pop up. I can just stand up and go. So it's now 6 months. I love it.
Yeah,
it's been great. And 3-4 times a week, I'm somewhere out there on this coastline.
That's amazing. Yeah. Where's your favourite?
I'd have to say.
I'm going to pull the blind down for you.
I'd have to say, favourite location would be Greenmount Beach.
Yes.
Greenmount, Coolangatta.
Just in front of your office.
Just in front of my office, my co-working space. Only reason is because in the mornings there's a pretty good current, and kind of averages anywhere between 1 metre and 4 metres depending on the day. And the waves are long, so all the way from Snapper all the way across Coolangatta.
Do you sit out the back of Snapper?
You could sit at the back of Snapper, catch a wave, and surf 3 beaches.
Very popular there.
No, not at all. Not at all. They hate me. I do sit out behind them, so I'm not really bothering them. But I will take the end, right, which is where they're all sitting. And then you hit the right moment and you just go, and they're just sitting there waiting. So
why
waste a wave? Occasionally, rarely happens. I'm normally a little bit further on, so I don't really mess with anybody. Because I don't want I want the room, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just taking whatever, most people leave the waves that I take. So, and that's the other thing is you don't need big waves to do well on a stand-up. So we'll surf in anything.
I'd much prefer to see the stand-ups out there than the foils, because those things just scare
Foils are amazing. I think that I speak to people.
They're dangerous as shit. I feel like they're going to cut my head off.
Yeah, I speak to people who ride them and they love them. They think it's the most fun thing they've ever done for years.
They're bloody expensive.
Yeah. I think foils are expensive. In the Crumman Creek where I am now, they're doing the electronic foils. So the e-foiling. So
really?
So it's all like no skill.
Yuppie surfing there. Just
jumping on, get the skatey thing going, and away you go. And it's all electronic. So they get about an hour out of the battery, and they can cut the waves. They can. I saw a guy literally traveling this beach with one of them. And so the foils also give you distance in a wave. Yeah. So you got more longevity. But they're pretty groovy.
When I was living at Coolangatta, was when they first were getting popular, and you'd see them all the way from Snapper down, and there was they're on a nothing. Yeah. But I'd been in the surf once I'd sort of caught a couple of waves. I was coming back out at Greenmount, and this dude come flying through, and you know what it's like there. It's pretty. There's lots of people. Yep. And if someone was in his way, how would you? You'd
collect somebody through.
Yeah, and
they're pretty. I find the foils pretty manoeuvrable. I haven't been on one, but I've seen guys who are even on SUPs. They've got foils that are SUPs. So because they've got these wind. We're watching people later before. They've got the wind. They've got these wings, the bat wings, right? Yeah. And so they don't need to be. They don't need to be on the with the kite surfing. Yeah. They've literally got a wing, and then that wing lifts them up out of the water, and they're just on a foil. So the boards are anywhere from 7 to about 9 feet. Is about I think the size. Some of them are even short, about 6 feet. But they're amazing. Like they just cut through the water. They give you a longer ride. Yeah. So they're great to watch. I'd love any of the surfers that are watching or listening to the podcast put into the comments below what your opinion is. Is this blasphemy? Is it destroying the purest sport, or is it something you guys will embrace? Is it what you do when there's no actual swell? I think as you get older, you want to be, you're not as nimble. It'll keep you in the water longer. I think I've met paddleboarders.
I've gone backwards. The older I get, the shorter I'm going. Everyone's like, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. As a kid, I rode a longboard. Yeah. Then I had 17 years of not being in the water. Yeah. And then I've come back and I got on a 7.2, which was a short board for me at that stage, 7.2, and now that's 5.7. Yeah. And
yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I did the other way around. I did shortboard and then moved to the longer board as I got older. Yeah, but that's
the usual progression.
Yeah. So
you're a little bit less nimble, a little bit less speed.
Yeah, but I'm like, I guess I've met people in Hawaii who've been paddleboarding for years. I mean, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the big wave surfer who's into it. I can't remember. Got a picture in my head, but he's been paddleboarding for 30 years. Oh. He's a big wave surfer. Yeah. But paddleboard's his number one go-to. Wow. So they do a lot of downwinding between islands in Hawaii. Yeah. They do a lot of ocean surfing. There's guys out there. I met a guy and he was like 82, and he was crushing it on the waves. And he had I couldn't figure out, he had a really short paddle too. So normally your paddle's a little bit shorter than a normal stand-up. In the water. His was like half the length, but he was just grinding it and just riding everything. And at 82, I mean, that's longevity. Yeah. And by the way, on SUPs, I see people on racing SUPs who are in their 60s and their 70s out there gunning it over the young people. Yeah, like literally destroying it. So I don't know. I think it's probably one of the fastest water sports that are growing at the moment. Yeah. Surf wise, all the surf shops are now carrying SUPs.
Are they?
Yeah. So. Yeah. So and you can take them anywhere.
And blow up SUPs.
Yeah, blow up SUPs are starting to get better than what they used to be. Yeah. But they can. They're not that. Well, actually, no, they can be expensive. The bigger SUPs do get pricey, but there are a lot of cheap ones out there. Yeah. But the blow up SUPs, unfortunately, if you catch a bit of wind, they're much harder to paddle in. Yeah. Whereas if you got your resin boards and your standard boards tend to be a bit faster. Yeah. But
when it turns into a lake out here, I have kind of wished I had a SUP to go out. And after we were talking about the reef earlier, I wouldn't mind having a SUP for out there because the paddle out on the short waters.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can go out. You can paddle out a fair distance, and you can take it easy too. Like center of gravity is pretty stable, and you can just sort of, if you want to sit or lie or paddle on the board normally as if you were surfing, you can do all that on a SUP. Yeah. So it's a bit of an all-rounder thing. Yeah. I've got a friend, actually, he's going to come on the podcast. He does a lot of work. He's a
professional lifeguard. He runs all the drones for WSL when they're in town for the Sharks. But he's like surfed in the world titles for longboarding. He's a full waterman, and he I think he's in the world champ for SUPs as well. And he's like, no, it's not blasphemy. I'm like,
Laird Hamilton.
Oh, Laird.
Yeah. So he's a huge SUP dude. Yeah. He's been supping for nearly 20, 30 years.
Well, if it's good enough for Laird, it's got to be good enough.
I mean, he's a legendary big wave surfer.
Yeah.
And his go-to, if you asked him flat out, straight out, there's a doc called Glide.
Yep.
He'll say, my go-to is I pick up the paddle.
Glide, you said?
Glide, yeah.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's really cool. On YouTube.
Yep. Oh, sick. Check that out. Okay,
the history of supping. So that's all supping. That's supping.
Everything sup, we're down. Let's move on to everything marketing.
Everything marketing.
Where do we begin? We're like, wait, we've got to part this conversation. We've just spent an hour and a half talking shit before we press go on the podcast, all about marketing and the challenges for business owners coming into the digital age, what's happened due to COVID and having to get familiar with technology, the ins and outs of branding and marketing getting screwed over by branding agencies. Where do you want to begin?
I think probably the biggest thing is I think a lot of people aren't really aware of if we think offline first before we go online, right? So in the offline world, we brick and mortar. We've got a shingle, we've got a sign. We would put ads in things like newspapers and TV and radio, and we still do those things. But we put ourselves out there. We would generate customers. Customers would refer other customers to us, and we know that we would. The reason why we're spending money on advertising or promotion is because we want to attract and engage new customers. So everybody in the world kind of got that concept. 20 years ago, the internet comes along. There's some very clever people that started the e-commerce game. And so there are companies in the last 12 years that evolved to be the largest companies in the world, e-com based companies, right? And there's a lot of companies over that last 12 years that built their entire business model online, did all their marketing online. And so more and more we're getting, this is the most powerful computer in the world, right? So more and more the visibility of what we're capable of. So to put online marketing and offline marketing into perspective, a year ago, only 14%, even though e-commerce had been going pretty much for 15 years, in that 15-year period, e-commerce only accounted for about 14% of all sales made in general. So 14% of anything bought was bought online. 86% was still bought face-to-face in a shop, right? So we're still going out there face-to-face, 86%. Now, COVID comes along and it's gone from 14% to 21%. So in a year, it's done what is expected it to do over 3 years. So it's sped up that process. So what happened when COVID hit was a couple of things occurred. The face or the game of how we engage our customers was exacerbated, right? All of a sudden we went into lockdown. People, were hanging on Facebook and TikTok and Twitter. Twitter had a resurgence. So like Twitter's turned into a very robust...
Still a thing?
Twitter's a thing, right?
It is?
So here's the thing.
I think the thing said we could stream to Twitter, but I don't...
So if we look at marketing just from a thing, right, from a point of view of something that we have to do in business, what we did offline, we now do online. So the cornerstone of our marketing is how we represent ourselves online. The shopfront window is our website, is a page where somebody recognizes a product.
Can I challenge you on the website concept? What type of business needs to have a website versus like absolutely needs to versus you can get away with social profiles and say landing pages or what's your opinion on that? You don't need a website, but you don't need a website. But you do need, there needs to be a visible access point. Yeah.
So I think if you don't own your own domain, that's a mistake.
Ooh.
I think if you don't own your own name domain, like if you've got Jade Green, so, whoever Jade Green is, if there is another Jade Green, right?
Apparently so I can't, my ex-husband wanted me to buy jadegreen.com. Years ago, and I'm like, I feel like a wanker. And so I didn't do it. And then a few years ago, I was teaching personal branding. I was like, I really should own my name. And there was a back order, like no one was using it. And then when I finally wanted, I got jadegreen.com.au, no problems. And then I went to do it and I looked up jadegreen.com and it was some weed seller in California.
Yeah.
And then I tried to get it and they were like, oh, $5,000. Mm-hmm. And back then I wasn't using my name as a brand. And I was like, oh, nah, $5,000, not worth it. Why didn't I do it?
Yep.
And now there's a consulting firm and she's a blonde girl. Like, that kind of looks like me. Out of California.
Yep.
So she's apparently gone from selling weed to doing actual consulting.
Yep.
I'm not sure what the link there is now.
So so if you can't get your own name, if you can get yourself a .co or a .io or something other than for your own name.
What is the IO?
So IO is just a recognition. Most companies who are software,
like
SaaS-based companies, they use IO as a designator, right? Okay. But it's not mainstream. So .co is very popular.
Yeah.
Obviously, the .com is the number one thing you want to be owning.
Yeah.
If you can get your name .com, .com.au you got, right?
Yep.
So you got.
And then I've got .co, I've got .nz, .uk, bloody.
So there's this cool website and it's called Noem.com. So it's Knoem,
like a little
Noem.
Oh, Noem.
KNOWEM, Noem,
okay,
right?
Noem. Yep.
So Noem.com. So if you go to Noem.com, what you can do is you can put your name in there and you press search and it is going to show you where you've got over 200 profiles that are available to you under your name. So Facebook, Twitter, and 200 other postings, right? So what you can do is you can build a brand by paying Noem a fee. I think the package, like a 25 pack, is like $69.
Yep.
So you put your image, your descriptions, videos, whatever you do, and then you pay, and then that'll distribute and set up accounts everywhere. It's pretty cool. So it creates a digital footprint
so rather
from
than
an
going,
SEO.
oh shit, quick, I've got to get my Instagram handle and my Facebook handle and
do
my
all in one
everything
place.
before.
However, other people have taken your name. Like you'll find very quickly when you do a search that there are certain platforms like Facebook or stuff like that where somebody's got already registered that domain or registered that name. So you can't use the same name, right? So you might have to go the Jade Green or Jade Green author or Jade Green speaker and create
I was stoked the other day. I got jadegreen.club.
There you go.
To use on Clubhouse.
Yep. Perfect. So I think you should own your own domain. If you can't own your domain, look for a variation of it. If you
How
find
do you feel
somebody
about hyphens?
Not searchable. But it tends to mess with SEO.
Yep, so you're better having a different dot something rather than a jade-green.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Better off having jadegreen.com.
Well, nobody's going to type jade-green. They're just going to Jade Green. So if you want to outperform the Jade Green consultant and you be found instead of her, then you want to make sure that you're branding your name in your Instagram, in your YouTube, in your Facebook, and then other people linking to your site so that you'll dominate with your name. Yeah. Technical stuff, talk to an SEO person. How do you dominate with your brand online? Syndication is key. Obviously, the more content you put out, the more syndication you have, the more your name's going to show up, the more you'll own. You want to own the first 5 or 6 pages of Google. Yeah. So if you've got a company or a business, so for example, we own commercial painting for every city in Australia. So I registered commercial painters Brisbane, commercial painters Sydney, commercial painters Gold Coast, Surface Paint, like key cities. Yeah. And then we basically built out multiple brands or multiple platforms for each of those domains. Wow. And then we became a booking service for commercial painters in Australia because no commercial painter could actually use the domain, right? So we would say, we would run ads. We would run ads and we'd say, great, this is a while ago. This is what we call domaining. So we'd run some advertising and we'd say, great, well, commercial painting quotes, right? So we would get all the quotes. Well, we're not commercial painters. So we'd go to a commercial painter and say, listen, how much, if you had this job, what would your quote be? And then we would ask, of that quote, how much would you give us if you win the job?
If we get it.
Right? So if we give you this opportunity, you win the job under agreement, what would you pay for us for that job? And so numbers like, we'll give you 10% or we'll give you 15%. Well, the lead might have only cost us $10, but we could get $15,000 out of giving the job to somebody else. So we literally brokered deals for commercial painting because we knew that people were searching for commercial projects. Yeah. And the average commercial project is going to be like 50 grand, 200 grand, $500,000. And if we're negotiating a 10% finder's fee or a 15% finder's fee, that turns it into quite a substantial amount of money.
And very minimal risk.
Very minimal risk.
Up the hunting
yeah. And the other part of that is we were able to sell that company for a lot of money because we owned the brand. So the way we own the brand is we syndicated the content so that whenever you looked for it, we would, like the first 3 pages would be that search term would be us. The only way you could outperform us is if you paid for advertising.
Yeah.
So pay for traffic. So getting back to your first question, the importance of marketing. What you have online is your shop front window.
Yeah.
Whatever you're wanting somebody to buy or search for, you need to represent that in a way. You need to make it easy for them to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
That's key. So if you're not visible, you've just lost your shop front, right? And right now, that's the most powerful computer in the world. So if you're a brick and mortar business, one thing that I would highly recommend you do is actually get your Google My Business registration up to speed. Pay somebody to do your citations, reviews, images, videos, descriptions, and have somebody consistently post so that you show up in the map section of Google.
Because it's user generated, right?
It is user generated.
So hypothetically, if you're paying someone to upload photos all the time as a user, then you're constantly raising up the ranks, you're staying refreshed, you're staying,
You want to be found. If you're a local business, you want to be found in your local market.
Yeah.
Because 67% of the traffic on that page goes to maps. Right now, when I look for businesses that are open, I don't go look in Google anymore. I'll open up my maps and I'll go restaurant, tire service, in my area.
Yep.
And who's open. So in the middle of COVID, people weren't open, right?
Yeah.
So the people who actually registered their business on Google My Business and had citations and had their listings say, I'm open for business, I'm handling business.
Yep.
Well, they're the ones that when you call them, you say, how are things going? Oh, we're flat out. Because people are finding us, right?
Yeah.
So you got to think in my marketing, how do my customers behave? That's what I've got to do. Does everybody need a website? No. But you're going to have a platform to sell what you serve to the market.
How does that work? Because whenever I'm driving along, I'll be like, hey, Siri, direct me to, or find me a. So is that pulling from the Google My Business?
I'm not sure I understand.
So she doesn't understand, right, the question. So Siri's just jumped into our conversation here. One of the things that you got to understand about how the algorithms work, right, is that voice command is becoming very important. So even thinking, like if you're thinking about how to search engine optimize my business, one of the things you want to do is what you're doing, you're driving and saying, post office Coolangatta.
Yep.
Fine, Siri. Hey, I don't want to.
Don't
Siri.
make her.
But hey Siri, what's the number? Can you call the post office in Coolangatta?
Yeah.
Right. And Siri goes, I'll find that number for you. So now you've got to think of voice commands as well as search commands or what people are typing in because people are just asking the question.
Yeah.
Right? Alexa are doing this. Everything's doing this, right? So voice search is becoming more and more dominant. But talking from a marketing point of view, you've got to be found. You've got, if you're selling a service, how does somebody engage with that service?
So my question, if someone's launching a new product or they're launching a new business and they're picking a name, would you, before you commit to the name and go register it, would you check and see what handles are available for like your Facebook, your Instagrams, your things?
If you're going to do long term, if you're building a product out long term and you're going to build something that it's established, you're going to have to do the homework on the naming of the company.
Yeah.
It's much easier. So naming conventions that's a huge topic, right? But one thing you want to be mindful of is use hybrid words. Think short, punchy words, right?
Yeah.
Think, like and I'm going to use silly things like hotornot.com, right? Now that could be anything. That could be anything, right? Most would probably think that would be related to, something female related and hotornot.com, right? So it'll be, so.
I thought chili sauce.
Chili sauce, right? Yeah, chili sauce, right. So, or hotornot.com. But you want to find, you can use acronyms, you can mash words together.
Yeah.
Look at Uber, right? Now, Uber in German is super, right? It's Uber good, right? And they used a German dialect in a name that's now become a vernacular in the English language, right? So, Google, where'd that come from, right? So all they did when they looked at Google was just a mashup of words.
Yeah.
What were we doing? We're just Googling around. We're Googling, right? And all of a sudden Google became the thing, right? Facebook was the Facebook, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's just Facebook, right? So names are really important. If you want to build something that's got a significant brand, you're going to want to own the domain. You want to own the .coms and you want to own all the variants to protect your intellectual property. You want to be mindful that somebody hasn't registered trademark for an image or a styling or a color because there are going to be issues around trademarking. Those are things that are important because you've got to protect your intellectual property. It's becoming more important to do that because we are such a dispersed world on the internet. So, you know, the question is, how important is this? If you're kind of just starting out, for me, it's almost like validation, right? If I can get this going, right? When a company I started, we were originally, you know, we were, the name was like Breakthrough Physical Therapy Marketing. It was a long-winded name. Then it became BPTM, right? Acronym. And then it became just Breakthrough. Now we didn't own breakthrough.com, right? We couldn't get it. But the company was called Breakthrough, although the company's registration is BPTM, right? So the branding, if you're looking at long term, you want to own the domain. Some people will pay a lot of money to own that domain. And it's worth it because it's yours. Once you own it and you've got that domain, you've got traffic, you've got, you can create a brand, you can direct people to that identity, right? So is a name important? Absolutely. Ask any major brand on the planet if their name's important, right? People spend too much time trying to figure this out. I think you can overdo it. I think get the product out, call it what it is. You know, there's a company that I worked with and said, well, what do you do? Well, we do search engine optimization. Okay, well, you can't call yourself search engine optimization, but what's the outcome of what you do? Well, we essentially convert traffic. Great, traffic converters, right? Now, there was a company called Traffic Converters. So just call yourself Traffic Convert, right? Well, there's another company called Traffic Convert. And then, so what if we just called this converted direct traffic? Just throw another word in there, right? And so then it was like direct, traffic direct, right, was the thing. But the spelling of direct was left out a C, right? So it was direct. Right? And so then all of a sudden it got smaller, right? So then it was taking the traffic and the D, so it's Tradit, right? And that's a new company. And people went, trade it, right? Trade it. And so they call themselves Tradit, right? Now that domain's worth millions.
Wow.
So as you evolve, you might change your branding. Companies change their logos and brandings all the time. You can get lucky, all right? You can get lucky with a name. There's an endless supply of branding names for you. So the question is, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to turn it into something? Is it going to be an asset? Is it going to be saleable? Is it going to be a long-term thing? That's going to determine how much energy you place on the importance of that brand, because branding right now is everything. Right now, if you talk to anybody on the planet, if they're not saying branding, because that's what we need to do, and that's what we need to do in the middle of a pandemic, is when we get into a situation where we have recessionary periods, the companies that last the longest are the ones that spend the most money marketing their brand. Because people see that.
That's why you paid $30,000 for a bee.
Exactly. That's why we paid $30,000 for a bee. But this is what people do. Most companies retract marketing in depressive markets. But if you look at the major brands, or if you look at like luxury brands, they actually spend up, right? Because they know what they're doing is they're capturing, you know, when the market turns, right, the competition's gone, and they're still standing, right? So the market turns to them. It happens in every major recessionary period. I'm kind of digressing from the first question of marketing, why it's important, but we should be branding. You know, video has become very powerful. Audio has become very powerful. Voice. You know. So
when you're talking about that, then say with audio and imagery, what's the importance of literally watermarking or branding your stuff that's going out, especially if it's getting reshared or what's your thoughts on that?
From a branding point of view, if you're watermarking, fantastic. That there's a level of professional production in that. People recognize the brand. There's, you know, by all means, you know, is it essential and important? No, but it helps, right? It does help. So if you've got a watermark in your video, absolutely. That's a technical thing that somebody can put on every video that you do. There's software right now, apps that are really cheap right now that can do it all for you. But yeah, what do I think about it? Yeah, anytime you can put your iconic identity out there or recognition of who you are, I would do that. But again, where is your market? So right now, the question I'm often asking people is, if we were to look at your digital footprint, what does that look like? And where are people coming from? And how are you engaging your market? Because do you know where they're hanging out, and are you in the right place? You could be spending all your time in Facebook, but all your people are on Instagram, not in Facebook. You could be spending all your time on Instagram and they might be on YouTube.
And this is where we see a lot of people come unstuck because they go where they go. So like, oh, but I hate Instagram. It's like, well, that's great if you hate it, but if your customer loves it, you got to learn to love it. Like I don't love it. But it's where I've got to be.
You need to be visible where your market is, so you need to know where they are. And you need to be cross-platform, and you want to own your brand or your domain across every every distribution channel, right? There are 230 distribution channels that we communicate with online, 230. The main ones, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, we've got that capability. TikTok now becoming very, very important and prominent for branding. And the advertising platform, TikTok advertising is super big.
I can't believe that I said this to my team this week. Mm-hmm. Kay is currently in the middle of creating me a TikTok account. She's like, "Oh my god, I finally!" Because I've been like, "I'm never getting on TikTok. I haven't been on the platform." Yeah. My team wanted to make reels for Instagram, so they're like, "Get TikTok," and I'm like, "No." So I said, "We'll bring the TikTok." So they bring the TikTok, they record the reels in TikTok, remove the watermark, and use it. But I've actually been convinced, thanks to Greg Allen and Mitch Van from Electrician Success Academy that we know, that they just did so well with their branding from TikTok that I was like, oh, fuck it.
It's another platform. And this is the thing, that you've got all these platforms and you've got to manage your communication on those platforms as well. So, to getting, just posting stuff isn't enough. Yeah. You've got to have the strategy of engagement. You've got to, what is the journey of a customer, right? Yeah. One of the things that I've found is, especially with buying products, more and more people are still searching to get validation that your product or service is the right product. So they're going to look at your reviews, they're going to look at your videos, they want to see what's going on. Proofing. They want to get to know you. They really do want to get to know that, okay, you're the right person for the service. So one of the things that's occurred because of the internet, back in 2006, Google did a study. There was a group called ZMOT. It was called the Zero Moment of Truth. So what the zero moment of truth was when somebody put their credit card to purchase a product. You can actually go and check the zero moment of truth videos on YouTube about them talking about this. And they found back in 2006 that for somebody to put their credit card in to purchase a product, they only needed 5 frames of reference. So 5 frames of reference might be a referral from a friend. Yep. Another frame of reference might be a review, seeing review, maybe a video, maybe looking at a website, maybe asking some friends for some recommendations, right? And so you had 5 frames of reference and you felt, okay, right product, right time, I'm going to buy it. So here we are, and we're now, 2021? We're in just gone March, we're now April tomorrow. How fast we've gone. So here we are in 2021. Zero moment of truth. We had 5 frames of reference back in 2006. Today, 32 frames of reference before we make a purchase. We've become so reliant on, we will watch the same video 3 or 4 times, the same review on the same product, or we would watch reviews from multiple people talking about exactly the same product before we purchase the product, or we'll read blogs about it, or we'll look at posts about, we'll look at the information from the company. Wow. So before we make a major purchasing decision, now I've fallen victim to this because when I went and bought a SUP, my SUP, right, I had to do my research. I did my homework. So what did I do? I looked at, how do you choose a SUP? Right, if you're just going to start supping, now what's the difference between a sup that is on still water and a sup that you can surf on? Or what's the difference between a sup that you can go out in the ocean on, ocean downwinding? What's the difference between a sup that you can go down a river in, or kayak in, or canoe on? What's a sup where you can go fishing off? So there's all these variations of sups, right? So then you talked about an inflatable sup as opposed to a hardboard sup. What are the benefits, right, of the SUP? So what do? You watch videos and reviews of all the manufacturers of the product to make sure, okay, well, how much should I pay for one of these things? Yeah. They're a cheap product out there, but I don't want to buy a cheap product. I know I've been burnt by buying inexpensive things in the past. I want to get this one right. So what do? So it took me 6 weeks to buy a SUP, right? Wow. Now, after I'd done my research, I found a SUP shop, and I went to a few, but there was one guy, and he was friendly enough to say, okay, well, look, let's just figure out what you want, and you can play with this stuff. I'll give you a board. You can knock yourself out, come back, and then you can choose. You get at least to get a feel for this thing. So it was like the puppy dog clothes, right? But to get to him, I'd probably watched and read 15, 16 different things. And even when I got to him, when I had the SUP, I was still asking questions about what's the right SUP? What's the right paddle? What happens if I buy the wrong SUP, right? Like what, if I purchase it and I don't like it, like I think I've got the right one, but like I can't take it back. I've bruised it, I've banged it up on, I have to go and buy another one, right? So all these questions. But in the end, because I was interested and curious, and I started watching, that's how I found Glide, right? Started watching SUP movies and watching people paddling out, 50 miles out in the ocean, catching waves, massive waves on subs, right? So eventually ended up buying after that frame of reference. Now, the scary part of that is it means when we've gone to multiple frames of reference, we've actually stopped trusting ourselves. This is a dangerous thing. We're externally referencing and we're not trusting our own intuition, instincts. So my question to people is, if you need multiple frames of reference, what do they need to interact with? What's the buyer's journey? Like if you sat down, the fastest way to do this, sit down with your top 6 customers, right? And ask some questions like, when you thought about purchasing or buying our thing, what were you thinking of? What made you start looking? When you started looking, what were you looking for? What were you absorbing? How much did you look? How did you get sure about what you wanted to buy? Then what happened just before you decided to make the purchase? And then what happened? How did you feel when you made the purchase? And then how did you feel when you got the product or the service? How did you feel then? And then what was the next thing that you bought straight after that purchase? Now, if you understand that journey and if you have half a dozen conversations, what that's going to tell you is exactly why people buy what you do.
You can figure out what to be after.
Exactly.
Like, you need to be after.
Figure out what to be after. But when you ask this question, how did you feel about the process, right? When you ask, how did you feel? Did you think you took too long to get there, right? Like once you got it and you got it done, you think, oh, why didn't I do this? When I got my SUP, I thought, God, I could have bought this like 6 weeks ago, right? I didn't resent the fact that I bought it, but in my head, I was like, I invested another 6 weeks in a process when I could have been out there 6 weeks earlier and just got it done. So if we understand the buyer's journey, right? And so for me, like I'm going to use SUP as an example. So what were my things? YouTube, websites, reviews, influencers, brands, right? I started looking for brands of SUPs. I started looking at all these sorts of things. So if I was selling SUPs, I'd make sure my brand is visible. I'd make sure I'd have videos about my product. I'd make sure I'd have educationals. I'd make sure I'd give them direction, how to buy one of these things, what you need to know, frequently asked questions. How do we make it easy for you? What can I do to make it easy for you to buy? If I do those things, and then so if I'm thinking the platforms I used, Facebook, YouTube, what else did I do? Was Google, so Google. And then I started looking at sites that were dedicated to SUPs. So blogs and influencers and stuff like that. And so if I know that that's the journey, if I place my brand in the same places where if people are going to interact with me 4 or 5 times, I've got a much better chance of capturing that customer and speeding up the sales cycle than if I'm just picking one channel. Right.
And that can be about like their interests as well. So if we went down the line of surfers and you wanted to sell to surfers, thinking about how can you get your brand aligned in that frame of reference. So if they're looking at surfing videos on YouTube, how else can you be in there? Like, do you need to be commenting? How do you show up where they're playing to get in the frame of reference? And
if you look at associated products, so you think, okay, a SUP, it's a board, right? Well, the next thing you need is your weapon of mass propulsion, which is that paddle, right? But then there's so many different paddles, right, to choose from. Super light carbon, wide, thin, Tahitian bends. There's all these things you got to know, right? Lots of cool stuff, right? But you can really get into this, the more you learn about the type of product you want to go, you're probably willing to invest more because you've invested more time trying to understand. You're actually leaning towards the value of something. You're making value judgments. So you're probably willing to invest that a little bit more because you know that what you're getting for your money in that regard as well. So a couple of things with online marketing. Digital footprint. Where are you visible? Are you consistent with your branding across multiple platforms?
This one I think is a really huge one. And like I said, when I used to teach personal branding, the consistency was a big thing because of 6 human needs. And that's why I stopped you before. I was like, stop, we need to talk about this. Because it breaks trust, I think. If someone researches you on Facebook and then say Instagram or your website and there's a completely different brand profile, the values don't look the same, even the fonts and colors and everything, it may not even be super obvious, but for some reason your brain goes, oh, something's not right there, or it's not the same. I don't feel safe because there's a lack of consistency.
You're diluting your message by doing that. This is something that's a bit more strategic in your thinking. So we're talking about the idea of getting a color palette, right? People go, oh, what's a color palette, right? Well, color palette are the regular colors that you use in your brand, in how your logo looks, where it gets published and printed, all that sort of stuff. So those are the sorts of things that are really, from a branding, from a consistency point of view, If you have your colors, your chosen 5 or 6 colors, then that's how you demonstrate a likeness for what you are and what you do, right? Your logo, right, also has to be consistent with the colors that you choose as well. And if you're going to choose a logo, you want to choose a logo that actually works on multiple backgrounds. Most people get really crazy with design and color, and they make their logos very complex. But look at the logos that are the most iconic logos in the world, and it's just a name.
Simple.
Just a word. In capitals, like think Jaguar, Mercedes-Benz, BMW. Like they haven't got flashy graphic design logo.
Simple.
It's just a very clean, simple image. And the other cool thing is I could stand 20 feet away and see a BMW logo and know exactly what it is.
100%.
Apple, I know exactly what it is, right? I've got the icon. It's a consistent brand, right? So
visual site
up
on the screen.
So branding's super important. Color palette's super important because it creates a consistency. It creates a trust in the fact that you have, I can trust the brand, right? They've got, I can identify with the brand. I can identify with the colors because colors are really important as well. They also have to match your audience and your world. If you're looking exactly, So there's a lot of woo-woo in the emotional side of the branding and the colors that you choose, but it is really important. For small businesses, not so much. But if you're trying to establish, as you grow, it will start to become more and more important. And the cool thing is that when you start looking at your company from a branding perspective, or the fact that you're choosing colors that emulate the feel or how you represent yourself, you actually lift your idea of the value of your company as well. So your perception, the people you work with, you all of a sudden become an owner of the brand. But the cool thing is that your customer also becomes a custodian of your brand. Right? So if they like your brand, they're going to share your brand. They're going to talk about you. They're going to look at what you're doing. I remember working with a company that was boring company. So they're a manufacturer of screws and nuts and bolts and all that sort of stuff. Engineering based, really stodgy, traditional type of business, manufacturing business. And nuts and bolts are not the most sexiest things in the world, right? However, they went away from the old schematic, dodgy, here's a nut, right? Or here's a screw. We do nuts and screws, right? And they went away from that and they went, okay, if we were to set ourselves apart from every other nut and bolt company in the world, and we wanted to look different, but we want it to be recognizable, right? How would we present ourselves? What are the colors? What's the colors we would choose? Because nuts and bolts are steel, right? Or heavy plastic or resins. So they had to pick strong, bold colors, right? It's edgy. So they had to be very edgy and linear in the way they represent themselves. They still used the architecture of a nut and a bolt, but they used it in a way that it was a little bit more abstract. You could see it, but it was slightly just different. But it was just so bold, right? It was so, like I say, if you sat 20 feet away from the BMW logo and you could see it on a business card, you'd know exactly what that company was. Well, they took the same concept with the nuts and bolts and just created that element of you could recognize that product anywhere, right? You know that company, that's the product. So if we look at companies like Caterpillar, DeWalt, Makita, Ryobi, look at the color schemes. They're strong, bold, easy to read. And so they took on this idea for the nuts and bolts company. Just by rebranding and just by having that, launching that brand, they saw a 15% increase in sales. Purely because they all of a sudden became a company that had care in how they represented themselves. They positioned their product as a premium product in the market. The prices didn't change, but the feeling of the product changed. And so all of a sudden, people wanted to display the product. People wanted to, they were knocking off major brands because this just looked so good. And it was so visible, and your eyes were always drawn to this brand.
Well, even if you think about it, simple thing like that, if they sell in Bunnings, if you have brand recognition, you can be scanning and you don't even see the others because you're like, oh, I'm looking for that to pull it off the shelf.
That's the other thing with branding is everything you're talking about consistency. So I'm going to use Ryobi as an example. Their system, it's really funny. Everybody's copied the Ryobi system. Battery-powered power tools, right? Just snap it in. One battery, 100 tools, right? Great marketing, perfect marketing. Everybody else, Makita, all the other brands, one battery, 100 tools, right? However, Ryobi have been marketing this brand and this concept before others came to the market, because they saw the writing on the wall. Well, why would you use electricity when you just use rechargeable batteries, right? Yeah. And so you would get, you're more portable. It added a whole different flavor, right? But people who don't normally buy power tools now buy power tools because of the snap in. I've got the hedge trimmer, the drill. So they've built their brand where now you're buying all the range, right? So they know the more they can get customers to buy, the more value per customer. And if they can identify with a brand, then they want their whole tool shed full of Ryobi or full of Makita.
You don't want to have a whole bunch of,
You don't want to have mismatch.
You've got to be you're either a Makita
or a Ryobi or whatever, right? Or Bosch, right? You look at all these bold brands. But very visible, very identifiable. The colors are, like they stand out. Their logos are iconic. Even in their advertising, it's all strong, bold, because what do you want your tools to be? Reliable, strong, Who are the people who use tools? Strong people, right? Yeah. It's a masculine thing. So you want a masculine image. So all of these things in branding, you need to take into consideration. Who's your audience? How do they feel about what you do? Who are you appealing to? How does that appeal to them? What are they going to be attracted to? If you ask your customers why they buy and what journey they took, and infuse your ideas in that journey, so they can visibly see that through all your marketing, all your printing, your online, your website, your images on your Instagrams, or whatever you're using in marketing, that's going to go a long way to getting recognized and being seen. And that's a really big thing. Most people, right now, the number one thing you got to be is you got to be visible online. Yeah. If you're invisible, if you're not, and right now we haven't got a choice. If you're not spending money on advertising, it costs you a lot of money to organically grow your business online. Yeah. Advertising's faster. The challenge with advertising is you've got to find a converting offer. Yeah. The only thing you need to be concerned with is where somebody engages in that buying process. So if you're advertising, you want a converting offer. That's all you need to do. It doesn't have to be a great converting offer. It just has to convert.
How do you test? How do you figure out what's going to be the converting offer before throw bucks at it?
You've got to start off small. So if we were talking Facebook, you'd start off with small budgets, and you would do split testing. So you would test, you might change the image, you might change a word in the copy, you might change, what you're looking for is where a certain percentage of, we're getting technical now, but what you're looking for is a certain percentage of engagement with your ad, where people are clicking through and following the buying process. With advertising, the number one number that you want to be thinking about is not how much it costs you to get somebody to click. What you want to know is how many clicks do you need to make a sale? To get the sale. And then how much does that cost to get the sale? So for example, if I was in the engineering world and I knew that an average engineering job was like $50,000, my question to me is, how much of that $50,000 would I be willing to spend to buy that 50 grand? Yeah. Now, if somebody said to me, well, 50 grand, I'd spend $5,000. Well, to make $500,000, you would invest $50,000, right? A $50,000 ad budget and marketing budget's a pretty good budget, right? Whereas, and that's the other thing, is a lot of people don't spend enough, right? So you want to get to this idea of, rather than how much am I paying per appointment or how much am I paying per click, I need to know how much I'm paying for a sale. If I know that number, then I can scale. If I know it costs me $1,000 to have somebody give me 10 grand, right, or 20 grand, then I'm going to print $1,000 checks, right? Because every time I print $1,000, I make 20 grand. That's how you scale up. That's how you end up with what we call an unlimited budget in advertising and marketing. But getting back to the advertising point, if you're not advertising right now, you're invisible. That first 4 slots in Google, they're all ads. That's paid traffic. The last 4 slots on that page, paid traffic. There are only 3 organic searches on Google. Right, you've got the maps, you got 3 more. Number 1 ranking is position number 5. That's the number 1 ranking on Google, right? Wow. So you've got to pay for it. If you want to be visible, you've got to pay for it. And if you're not paying for it directly in advertising, you're going to be paying for it somewhere else. You have to hire somebody to manage your social media. You're not going to do that. And that's the other thing, is it's not your thing. You don't want, as a business owner, I don't want to learn how to do Facebook ads, right? It's a nightmare because it changes all the time. Yeah. So you want to hire somebody who knows what they're doing, who can show you or demonstrate to you. What's your best advice
on hiring? Because I think this is like, so many people say they've been burnt.
Yep.
This is where they get scared about throwing the dollars at something because the risk is kind of like gambling. Mm-hmm. So how do you figure out Who do you give your money to?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So my question is, have they done it before? Can they prove the concept, right? The reason why a lot of the reason why advertising in general fails is not because the ads don't work or not because the leads are bad. It's more about the strategy, right? What do you want them to do? And does that match up with the buying process? So I'll give you an example. I was working with an agency. They had a roofing client. The roofing client was a big company, and they thought, we've got to come up with a hook. So the roofing company said, you know what? We'll offer in our ads a $250 gutter clean. So we'll advertise $250 free gutter clean when you come, and you can get $250 from us from a gutter clean. So, and they were wondering, they weren't actually getting any leads. They were spending thousands and thousands of dollars getting lots of clicks, but no leads were coming out of it. And I said, well, the strategy's wrong. And they went, what do you mean? Well, when you've got a problem with your roof, are you looking to get your gutters cleaned? Or are you looking for somebody who can help you with the roof, right? To repair the roof. So where's the roof repair incentive? Or where's let's save you $5,000 on replacing your roof and refurbish the roof, right? Let's give you $5,000 towards refurbishing the roof. There's an offer. Relevant, right? If I'm thinking I've either got to replace or refurbish.
It's currently leaking water on my head when I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about my
gutters. I'm not thinking my gutters, right? So the strategy is wrong. The reason why the campaigns don't work, or the reason why people feel like they're burnt, is it's a twofold problem. One, the person who's running the ad campaign hasn't really thought through the strategy, hasn't sat down, understood the buyer's journey, and mapped out what are we advertising and what happens after they click, right? So strategies first. You've got to have a converting offer, right? So it has to convert into an action that's relevant to sale. The third thing is, and this is probably the most critical part of all of advertising, is what happens after they inquire. When they make an inquiry, how quickly are they called? How quickly are they managed? Most people will say things like, and this happens a lot. So let's say we're picking the chiropractic space. They do lots of advertising. They change advertisers all the time, as they say, all ads suck. Right? They're terrible, right? All the leads are terrible, right? So then you start asking questions. Or I'll give you a better example. There's a air conditioning company, 200 leads, no sales. So there were 200 people that clicked on the ad, went through, they collected the data, had the phone numbers. They didn't make a single sale, right? So now you would think that was a successful campaign from a click-through point of view or from a lead point of view. But the quality of the lead, questionable, right? Well, it really didn't have anything to do with the quality of the lead because they were coming in saying, I need air conditioning. Right? I need help with air conditioning. I need a quote. That's what they were asking for. That was the offer. Yep. So they're clicking on, I need a quote for air conditioning. The problem is the company would either not call the people from the ad, or they might call 2 or 3 days later.
Too late.
Somebody else will record them. So, and this person said, the advertising doesn't work, right? So what we did was, I recommended to my client, I said, well, what you got to do is you got to call these leads. You got to call them all. So they didn't get to call 200 and they called 90 of them. Now, the average air conditioning sale is $12,000 to $15,000. So they called 90 leads. 30 of the 90 people they called had bought their air conditioning unit somewhere else. They actually bought, right? So they spent $12,000 to $15,000 in extra. 30 of them. So that's $450,000. $450,000 worth of sales from an ad campaign that generated 200 leads that the company that ran the ad didn't get. Somebody else got them. So that was the first thing, right? Then there's a whole bunch of people who said, nobody ever called us. We forgot all about it. Not really important right now, right? A whole bunch of people said that.
It was important when it was really hot, but now it's cold.
No, it's now cold, right? So here's the thing.
It's Melbourne. It was really hot yesterday.
15 of the 90 people that were called back, and this is like weeks after the lead had asked the inquiry, 15 people, they asked the question, well, do you still need an air conditioning unit? Like, are you still interested? And they went, well, yeah, we still need the quote. We still need to do it. We just didn't get around to do anything about it. So 15 leads. So I said, now, multiply. Worst case scenario, they close half of them, right? Worst case scenario, they close half of them. So 7 deals. So that's going to be, what's that? 15 times 7, it's like nearly $100,000, right? $100,000 in sales just sitting there waiting, where people have gone, well, nobody got back to us and we'll kind of still need an air conditioner. Now, 30 people bought from somewhere else. So now here's the thing. We only called 90. There were 200 leads.
Yeah.
So there could have been another 15, double the amount of revenue, just off the old leads. Now, here's the cool thing. That would have more than given them 10x on their return investment on their advertising. Picking up those leads that are still waiting, they would still get 10 times what they paid for the advertising. The advertising campaigns were successful, but the strategy was wrong. The optimization of the sales process was wrong. So the biggest problem I see with lead generation and why people get caught up in the agency, it's always the agency's fault. They give me bad leads. I'm always asking, what happened to the lead? Put yourself in the customer's shoe. You're inquiring about a product. Nobody calls you. So what do? You keep searching, right? Until you find a product. So you go to the next person, the next person. Before you know it, and I'll give you a classic example of this, my father-in-law needed to paint his home in the middle of pandemic, right? So, and he thought, well, I don't have to speak to the guy. I don't have to shake hands with him. He can come to the house. I can wave at him from the door and he can just go and paint my house, right? So he went to Google and he rang companies on Google to say, look, I need my house painted. Will you come and paint my house? I know the pandemic's on. You know, I know you keep safe. I want to keep safe. If I can wave to you at the door, I can transfer the money electronically on the, you know, send me an invoice and I'll pay you the deposit or whatever you want. But can you come and paint my house, right? So that's a sale, right? So and a house painting job is like 25 grand. So he rang 4 companies, right? And one person says, oh, look, you know, we're, you know, pandemic and blah, blah. We can do the job, but we'll do it when we can come out of lockdown. Okay, great. Well, I want the house painted now, not later, right? Next person closed, out of business. Next person not open, right? Still there, but not open, not accepting. Next person had to leave a message, never got back, right? Next person, same thing. Finally got a person on the phone and said, listen, I need my house painted. Can you help me? I've been calling a whole bunch of people. I know that I know that you're going to put a quote on this thing. We don't need to see each other. We can wave to each other from the door, right? I can electronically pay you, but can you give me a quote? I want my home painted. Can you help me paint my home? And the guy went, yeah, I'll be there this afternoon at 2 o'clock. Rocks up at 2 o'clock in that afternoon, says, you're looking at about $19,000 for the job. This is the materials I need to use. It's going to take me 3 or 4 days to get the job done. I'm going to make sure that, you know, looking at the weather ahead, I can get this started next week for you if you want. We can be here on Monday. With the crew, we'll have it done within 48 hours to 72 hours. Done. And so my father-in-law went, done, right? He bought on the spot. Didn't get 3 quotes, right? But here's the cool thing. They got the house painted. So this is like a week and a half later. All of a sudden, 2 or 3 phone calls. Hey, you were after a quote on a painting job? Like this is 2 weeks later, right? They've paid for the ads. They paid for the inquiry. They lost a $20,000 job because they're not optimizing their sale and they're not managing their leads. Yeah. So the biggest name of the game right now is how quickly you can actually engage and respond to the lead. Yeah. That's going to determine on whether you get the sale or somebody else gets the sale. Yeah. And you want to be the first choice. And the reason why you're advertising is to be the first choice. So if you don't honor that lead, and I've been through many of these scenarios with companies where we ran campaigns and they completely obliterated the result. And then we sat down and we unpacked that and we went, the reason why this didn't happen is you didn't treat the leads like they're important. You didn't value what you were creating here. And you didn't, and by the way, there's 3 fingers pointing back, one out, right? By the way, if we hadn't sat down with the sales team and said, hey, we're giving you people who are putting up their hand saying, I'm interested. That's a hot lead. So we need to treat that lead like a hot lead, right? If we treat them like a hot lead, we're going to make more sales. Now, they still made 250 grand, but they lost about $700,000 worth of opportunities. We did the analysis based on their conversions, based on the fact they never followed up. They nearly lost $750,000 worth of revenue, right? And they made 250. Now, they were thinking 250 was awesome. Like, they were successful, like, right? Yay. This is awesome. But there was a $750,000 left on the table because they didn't follow through and because we didn't word up the sales team and say, these people need to be engaged immediately. You need to treat them, if you were treating them like your family member, if you treat them like gold, they're going to feel it, you're going to put yourself into a sales position. So the biggest problem with lead generation or Facebook advertising or Google AdWords, a couple of things. 1, got to have a converting offer. Number 2, got to have a follow-up system. What's going to happen when somebody inquires? What is the next logical step? The question is, how do you make it easy for them? Like some people, I'll give you another example of this, happens a lot. They'll go, let's fill in a form, get some details, and then we'll call them back, right? Yeah. So let's say I'm a plumber. So I'm picking trade services here on these examples, but I'm a plumber, right? I'm looking for a plumber. Am I looking to fill in a form to download something? Or am I looking for a phone number that I can just call the plumber? Yeah. Right? I'm looking for the phone number. So 2 ad campaigns. 1 ad campaign for a plumber, same plumber, download the form. Here's how you save 25% on your plumbing job. And this is what you need to know about getting your plumbing done right. Choosing the right plumber.
Come stop the tap pissing water everywhere.
Yeah. Second ad, just call this number. Dynamic number, recording on every phone call so we could track, right? So we ran the ads side by side. Now, traditionally, they would have run let's get some information. Now we've got some data, we're going to email market, do all that sort of stuff, build a relationship with these people, right? So we spent the money on both sides, split the ad campaign. So pick up the phone and call, outperformed fill in the lead magnet by more than 140%, right? So they got way more phone calls because what do you need when you need a plumber? You need to talk to the guy and say, I need the work done, right?
Like now, I don't want to be on your mail list for next time. I'm
not interested in your lead magnet or your downloadable thing. I don't want to give you my email address. You can collect that on the phone, right? Yeah. But the campaign, so think about what's the behavior, what's the buying behavior, right? So if you're going to run marketing or any form of advertising, which I believe you should be doing, if you're not advertising, you're out of the game. If you're not advertising, go and Google who is in your market and they're getting your customers. They're getting the work. You're not, they are. And the reason they are is because they're visible. You're not. If you're relying word of mouth, you can't survive.
What's the 5 things, 3 to 5, you decide, things that someone needs to know before they go and spend on advertising? Obviously, they need to test that they've got a converting offer. But what do they need to know? Don't
advertise yourself. Get a professional to advertise for you. Get somebody who is already advertising in your market, knows advertising, can prove strategy, can prove results in advance. Like to say, hey, well, we've run several campaigns and these are the results and here's the sales, transparency.
Hypothetically, if you were a service-based business, maybe you don't want to go with the same person that's already advertising your competitor because maybe conflict of interest?
Not worried about that, actually. No. I would want him to be advertising for my competitor because he knows what converts, right? And here's the other thing. I've often been in a situation, I ran an ad agency and clients would say, we want you to be exclusive. So my question, when somebody says exclusive, let's look at the territory. So there was a company that I was working with. They're in Sydney. Now, Sydney has a population of 6 million people, right? And the volume of search for a particular product category, this was a company that built sheds, right? Portable sheds. The volume of search per month was about 60,000 searches a month, right? Greater Sydney area, 60,000 searches per month. So my question was, they said, we want to be the only one, right? So I said, great. So you want your ad shown 24/7 and you want to buy all the traffic. Now, my question to you is, of the 30,000 people a month, you're probably going to get about 1,500 to 2,000 inquiries.
Can you handle that?
Have you got a team to handle 1,500 to 2,000 inquiries from that ad campaign? And do you have enough people to sell 300 or 400 sheds a week, right, to the marketplace? Can you do that? Because if you can do that, you can own the market. But here's the other thing. Budget. So to be exclusive and to get into that situation where you're going to dominate your competition and you want to be seen everywhere on every category means you're going to outbid everybody. That's the only way you're going to win. So you're going to take your product category and outbid. So you're the one that's showing number 1, right? And number 2 and number 3 and number 4. And you're showing in the ad in the Google My Search space. So this company that did the sheds, I said, well, here's what's going to cost you. We need an ad budget of about $1.5 million a month. That's the ad budget. We take 8% of that. That's our fee, right? So we're going to take $120,000 a month to manage that campaign because we're going to literally dominate in the market, right? So yeah, you need to give me $1.5 million. That's $18 million a year. You got an $80 million ad budget for me? You can own the market. You're not going to handle every inquiry. And so I'm not looking for exclusivity. I'm not, if it's a locality, a location, I'm my business brand. There is an offer I'm making to the market. To win, I've got to outbid my competition. That's the only thing you can do to win, is you've got to outbid. Your ad's going to be above somebody else's. But here's the thing, 18%, 19% of all traffic is in the ad space. 67% of search is in the map space. So you want to combine your strategy with paid traffic. Paid traffic, you're visible right up front. And by the way, there's different ways of advertising, right? So you've got the Google Display Network. So if you're on news.com.au or you're on CNN, your ad can appear in those markets, right? You've got YouTube advertising.
How do you get your ad showing on Coastal Watch?
So what you want to do is you can actually in the retargeting in the thing. There's a pool in the Google Display Network. It will display. So it's based on how much you spend and where your audience is. So there's an algorithm that selects if you want to be on Coastwatch, then you're going to look at your assimilated audiences around Coastwatch. Your keywords are going to be relatable. So media outlets or brands will have your ads. If they've got ad space there and you bid enough, you'll show up on those spots. The way to do that cheaply is to retarget. If you do retargeting, which is much cheaper, a lot more impressions, right? It means that you're creating, you might have 140 ad sets. That's a lot, right? It's 140 images or ads. And what you're doing is you're running them on YouTube and LinkedIn and everywhere. You're just doing it on the retarget. So when somebody visits your website and they've been tracked off your website, that's what retargeting is. Whenever they go online and they hop on news.com.au or CNN or wherever they go, or Huffington Post or Coastwatch, because you've been tracked, right? Because of their search criteria, you're automatically going to show up in their feeds. If you're paying for retargeting, you will show up. That's the cheapest way to show up on those platforms.
Can you pixel them going to a social profile for retargeting rather than a website? You
can pixel them on any page they land. Right, if they land on a landing page, you can pixel it. If they land on your website, you can put a pixel on there.
What if they only go to your YouTube channel?
You can do some targeting things out of YouTube. You can see it, using your insights and stuff like that. You can see where the traffic is, so you can actually market and advertise for traffic. But I would recommend you talk to somebody who does YouTube advertising. Right, but number one, go and talk to somebody who does this stuff. Understand how it works. Understand that you're responsible for what happens after somebody clicks, right? That's not, unless you've got a system set up, you want to manage the lead. Advertising is meant to create 4 different opportunities. Number one, an action. If you're going to do advertising, have one action. Don't ask people to do 5 things. Don't say, go and join my Facebook page and Instagram page. Just tell them, if you want them to join the Facebook page, just tell them to join the Facebook page. If you want them to pick up the phone and call you, then you want to have your phone number 4 or 5 times down the page. Call this number. Call this number. Click here. Call the number, right? You want them to call. If you want them to buy...
Make a number clickable within your page as
Dynamic numbers are really important. You want them to buy something. Buy now, buy now, buy now. Multiple times on the page. One page, one action. That's the best way to do it. When you do advertising, you're branding, you're building a customer base, you're then being able to engage that customer base. 3% of the market will buy immediately. They're in the buying zone. 7% of the market want to buy, they just have some questions they need to answer. It's about 10% really are in the buying zone. 30% of the people, if you don't look after them, if you do look after them, they will buy within 3 to 6 months. So 30% of your market that comes into your database through advertising, if you build a relationship with them within 3 to 6 months, because they've already been looking, they had an interest, there was a reason why they got there, right?
Something sparked.
So you're engaging them, they're going to come back to you. So this is where retargeting is important. So you want to engage them coming back to you. If you're doing that, you're going to pick up more sales, right? You're building a customer base and relationship. The other 60% you want to inflict on your competitors. They're never going to buy, right? Or if they do, they're probably going to buy in 2 or 3 years' time, right? So over that period. So you need to own the data. You need to make sure you're collecting data. And that's one of the things that before the pandemic, a lot of businesses discovered they weren't collecting data. And all of a sudden, they've still got to be in business and they couldn't contact anybody. Couldn't let anybody know that they were in business. So number one, be visible. Number 2, be advertising. Number 3, manage the sales process. Understand what's going on. How does a customer buy? If you know how a customer buys, all you got to do is make it easy for them to do that. If they're saying, this is what I did to get there, then you say, hey, what most people do to get this thing that you're interested in, go here. And if you do that, you're going to dramatically improve and increase the chance of buying. So, marketing is a core function of your business. There are 5 things that you need to do. Every business, my business, your business, we need to generate leads. We need to nurture those leads into opportunities for sales. We need to be able to convert them effectively, help them to convert. We need to then deliver. And unfortunately, now we have to deliver a great or an outstanding result. We can't deliver an average result because they'll go somewhere else. And then we need to do one thing which is critical is we need to retain them, we need to resell them, and we need to upsell them. And that's where the money is.
And this is what we were talking about earlier, right? So what is the lifetime value of your customer? And what else can you sell to them? Because it's so hard to get those leads. It's so hard to get them in the first place.
Oh, they're expensive.
What can you do to maximize
engage, ask questions, provide value, educate, inform, always make an offer, right? You want to always be offering. If you're not offering, you know, they can't buy it. If you don't offer, it's like I have this thing, right? If you don't put an offer in front of me, I can't buy your thing. And they go, And then I often ask the question, who's got your offer right now? And they go, nobody. Or, oh, we don't have one out there. Oh, it's on the website. Yeah, but who is actually seeing that? Who's seeing that offer? Because if somebody's seeing your offer, then you've got an opportunity to make the sale happen.
Yeah.
But if they don't see the offer, there's no offer in front of them, they can't buy it. So I say to people, what's your offer? And they'll have a convoluted idea of what that is, right? And then the next question is, well, who's got it in front of them? And then how are you helping them buy it?
Yeah.
Right? How are you doing that? And they're like, oh, we need to follow them up, or we need to talk to them, or we need to ask a question, and yes, you need to do all of those things. And so you need to think about, you know, how do we get people to buy? What do they need to do? Remember, 32 frames of reference. You know, maybe we don't need 32 frames of reference. Maybe we just need the right things that are relevant to help them make the next step or the decision. How do we help them to deal with price? How do we help them deal with, is this the right product? How do we help them to deal with, will this work for me? Will this do what I want it to do? Can I rely on this? Are you going to be in business so I can get this fixed or looked after or serviced or supported down the track? All of these questions, if you can answer these questions, you're going to stand out from the crowd. You're going to beat your competition. And probably the biggest thing is know where you're heading. Most people don't know where they're heading, but you want to sit there and go, hey, you know, this is my plan. Every business needs a strategic plan right now, and they don't have one.
No.
We're still in a climate of uncertainty. We're still in a climate of volatility. We're still in a climate of ambiguity. We've still got complexity. We're still in a pandemic, right? Half the businesses that were here a year ago are gone. It took a year to wipe out half the small businesses on the planet. There's still, and there's still more to come, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a whole bunch of new businesses that have come along and opened up in this time. And there's a whole bunch of businesses that have grown in this time. And so you can only be in three places. You're either making a decision and you're growing. So you've got an idea and you're looking ahead and you're planning to that. You're either trying to hang in there. If you're trying to hang in there, you're only going to be hanging in there for 6 months to a year. That's it. You'll be out. If it's maintenance, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? You're going backwards. If you're trying to maintain, your competition isn't going, oh my God, they're maintaining. Let's maintain too. No, they're maintaining. Hey, that looks like they're going out of business. We better go to all those customers and let them know that they're going out of business because they're maintaining. We're here, right? So your competition will outperform you if you're maintaining.
Yep.
The market doesn't stop. Inflation doesn't stop. People don't stop. So you don't want to stop. The third place is you're trending or trending downwards. You're drifting, right? So when you're drifting, you've got to make decisions. Otherwise, you're out. If you're maintenance, you've got to make some decisions. Otherwise, you're gone. But if you're trending up, it means that you are decisively acting on a forward-moving plan. Your company will grow. Your business will grow. Opportunities will happen. There is a huge gap right now, and there's this little boom that's going to happen. Right now, the Western world, Europe, America, even us, there are still relative lockdowns. We have a level of normality in this country. However, 30% of our GDP, which is tied up in travel and hospitality, is gone, right? International travel is still gone. Won't be here for another year. It's always 6 months. Yeah. 6 months to a year, right? And even then when it gets back here, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to get back to where it was in January 2019. Had that the way they're around. It's going to take a year to get there, right? So understand that's a big chunk. So what's happening is the gap is widening for the market. So if you're in the market to generate clients, you can pick up those clients from your competition in the market. So yeah, so be visible.
Be visible, but I think the first step goes back to what we were talking about before, is understanding where the customer is. Because so many people think they need to be visible somewhere, and it's not actually where their customers behave. Like me asking a question about being on Coastal Watch. Well, having your ads shown on Coastal Watch if you don't sell to surfers, kind of pointless.
Irrelevant, yeah.
Totally pointless.
Yeah.
Right? So really getting into the shoes of your customer and understanding where do they spend time.
Yeah.
And I think also about what is their mentality when they're on that platform.
Yeah.
Because I think, what's your thoughts on, like, I say to people, especially if they sell B2B, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to retarget my LinkedIn connections on Facebook, and I sell corporate leadership, and so we're going to try and find the CEO on Facebook. And I'm like, what do you reckon they're doing when they're on Facebook? Do you reckon they're in their business mind? Are they zoning out, looking for? They're just
family, friends, crazy stuff, whatever.
Probably the last thing that's on their mind is looking at corporate leadership or whatever. So is that even a good place to be trying to show up, or what does your ad need to do to get their scroll stop before you can pattern interrupt?
Yeah.
Right? Or do you double down on where you know they're going to be and think about how you can do something differently to be there?
If I look at guys like John Caples and Claude Hopkins, who are the grandfathers of responsive marketing, these people wrote the book on marketing and advertising. They tested millions and millions of dollars worth of money on ads. People would have to pay them $1 million just to write one page for the newspaper.
Yeah.
So they were highly paid, highly skilled, this is back in the 1930s. When $1 million is worth a lot of money, right? So even if I look at the current mentors in marketing, guys, people like Jay Abraham, people like Dan Kennedy, Eugene Schwartz, all these guys, they would all say one word: test. Test, test, test. You don't know
That's
until you test it.
That's the only word Ed Dale knows, isn't it?
Exactly. You don't know. You don't know until you put it out there. But you don't have to, like, I'm a big believer in failing fast and failing cheap, right? I want to fail as cheaply as possible. But to do that, I've still got to throw some water into the pump, right? Or prime the pump with some advertising. So to find, and you might be testing for a while to find that sweet spot, and then you're going to build a control. And then from that control, you're going to test again. And you're going to test again. And so you're slowly, you're working towards improving your engagement, your capability. There's also a thing you've got to be mindful of is, how do you know? Well, there's a thing called message blindness. And so there's a point where your ad's no longer, even though you've got a converting offer, because people have seen the ad, you've saturated the market with that image or with that ad, you need to change up the ad because you've got message blindness. And what happens is when you get to that point, and there's less and less people clicking, the cost of ads actually goes up, right? Because you're not churning the volume. Yep. So you might be running an ad, and although it worked a month ago, because you've been running it for too long, the same audience is seeing it and it's being diluted. So you need to show that ad to another audience of the same idea or the same ilk, but maybe in another platform. Or you redesign the ad. You'll make still the same offer, but you'll change the image or change the copy. Because you need to keep it fresh, right? Advertising is a really technical game. But to me, I don't know until I put the idea out. And I talk to a lot of people who, like, I've got to get everything perfect and I've got to get all my ducks in a row and I've got to make sure everything works. I learned a really long time ago, I was smart enough to listen to one of my mentors, Jay Abraham, and he said, Seth Godin says this as well. You've just got to ship it. Like, if you've got an idea and you think it's a good idea, then share the idea. And if somebody puts money down, that's when it's validated. So we built a $1 million company off a product that hadn't even been built. We got people to pre-buy the product, and then as we were building the product, we were evolving. So they were getting a better and better version of the product, right? Until they got the product that we promised them, right? Yeah. But we needed to get the money to build the product. So we raised $500,000 by going to a large group of people saying, listen, this is the idea. If you like the idea, we'll let you in at this level, right? But you're not going to get this for 12 months, right? But incrementally along the way, you're going to be with us on that journey to get you that product.
It took me 6 months to get the book that's over there from Stephen Kotler because actually I think it took longer.
Yeah.
Because I bought it in pre-sale.
Yeah. And it took 6 months to get back. Yeah. So
he's like, this is my idea. I'm like, buy it.
People will invest in ideas. People will, if you've got a great idea, you want to validate it, right? And so for me, I don't want to wait till I get the ad perfect. I don't care about perfection. I just want to get a response. I want to get feedback. And if the market's going to tell me whether they like it or not, that's who I need to listen to. I need to listen to myself. I don't need to like my colors, right? I don't need to like, the market's going to tell me that looks amazing.
Yeah.
I might think it looks like a dog's breakfast, right? Yeah. But they think it's great, so I'll just give it to them. Give them what they want. If I change it, if I'm the customer, then yeah, I've got some say in it. But if I'm not the customer, the person who is going to make the engagement or pay the money is the person that's in charge of the distribution of that product.
Yeah.
So stop putting ducks in a row. Stop preparing. Stop trying to create the best copy, right? Have an idea. Share the idea. See if it validates. to me, validation is somebody who's willing to pay for it. We talked about a guy who, before we got on this this podcast, about a guy who was, creating this product. He's going to launch this product in 5 weeks' time. And he had a small audience that he could go to and share the product with now and ask them, would you buy this? Like, I've got this idea. It does all these cool things. Is that something that you like the idea of? And if it is, can I show it to you? And if you like it, you can let me know how much would you pay for that, so I can get a gauge of what you think it's worth, right? And if I hear a little bit of consensus, or if I can sell it before I build it, now you can go and build all the other assets and build out that launch. It's that because what happens is you might build all that stuff, nobody likes your idea. And so you've invested all this energy and time thinking this is going to be amazing, best thing ever, and you're emotionally caught up in this.
Yeah.
But you haven't validated the idea, and that's the number one thing: is you want validation. You want somebody to value what you do, and value. One way to validate is people are putting money down on the table, saying, "I will buy that from you.
Yeah.
Here's my money." Right? Great. Let's get it to you. Right? So don't get ducks in a row. Right? Be a do, don't be a duck. Be a do, don't be a duck. So action's going to trump anything, and you want feedback as quickly as possible. That's what marketing is all about: is testing and getting feedback. So
so much. Like,
this is not what I thought our conversation was going to be like.
What
Went
did you
everywhere.
What did you think it was going to be like?
I just thought we were going down a particular track. I like where we've gone because we've covered so many things in the time of being here. But it's like normally when people sort of get me to talk about specific things and that sort of stuff. I mean, we went from advertising to stand-up paddleboards to being a duck and a do and what the things you need to know about advertising. I guess at the end of the day, hopefully people can take a nugget from what we've talked about, and that's the other thing. The last thing, if I was going to quickly share, is that don't be an action faker, right?
Whoa.
Don't be an action faker. An action faker is somebody who consumes ideas and consumes information, but never actually acts on the idea. So you can be an action faker, know a lot of stuff, be very smart, right?
Yep.
But never actually experience a result because you never actually put your toe in the water and do, right?
Take action. Similar to, I say, we don't have a knowledge problem, we have an implementation problem.
Yeah. Action fakers. You consume, but no action. So that's not mine. That was a guy called MJ DeMarco who coined the phrase action faker. For me, I call them knowledgeable derelicts. Yep. I used to be a knowledgeable derelict. I used to love all this great mindset stuff and blah, 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 and learn it all. And then I'd be a year down the track and thinking, why aren't I cracking this? Why aren't I feeling what that person feels, right? The reason why is because I haven't acted on the idea.
Yeah.
So whenever I do stuff like this, if you've been listening to the stuff we've been talking about, if you could, I always ask, take one piece and act on it immediately. Like, I've got to get some feedback on the one piece as quickly as possible. So if I buy a book, I'll read whatever I'm reading, take one idea from what I'm reading, just one thing. It doesn't have to be big, small, indifferent, just something. Go and try it. Get feedback. Sometimes you're going to win. Sometimes you're going to surprise yourself. Sometimes you'll learn something different. We have a mutual friend who I love the reframe. He says, you're either winning or you're learning, right? Yeah. Learning is that action taking, not action faking. The winning is the result of the action taking, right? But yeah, don't be an action faker, be an action taker. Take one idea of whatever we've convolutedly shared with all the directions we went to in this podcast and apply it. Give it a shot, see what happens. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a couple of key pieces of gold to recap there. I think branding. Mm-hmm. Get your brand, own your name, own your domain, and own the handles. Yeah. So that you're at least protected and you've got it. And people think you have to go and spend, and this is where we talked about $30,000 on a bee, but you don't need to spend huge amounts of money to have a professional looking brand. Right. Some of the best brands are so simple, super clean,
just words,
super simple,
just a type font. Yep. That's it.
But it's about the way to have branding is to have consistency.
Yeah.
To have a suite of colors, to have a consistent imagery, to have a consistent look, and to make it timeless, not fancy.
You're always branding. Regardless of whatever you do, you're always branding. And if you're branding in a mixed message, then that's what you're doing. You're mixed message branding. But if you're branding consistently, then people are going to see that message.
Well, when I talk personal branding, I said to you, everybody has a personal brand, whether you like it or not. And it's what people say, or worse, don't say about you when you leave a room or a conversation. So you've got to take control of it. So you're always branding. Are you in control of that brand? Are you being deliberate, and have you got intent?
Absolutely.
So start with at least going, what is that digital footprint? Where do I need to be? Where are my people? And at least protecting your assets. And you've got your
Start
real
with
estate.
the people who already buy. Ask them, why did you buy this? Why do you like us? What got you here? Why do you keep buying, right? If you understand that journey, that's like the cornerstone of all your marketing. Go and talk, and that's probably going to be the best thing you can ever do, is talk to your customers. We did an exercise where we sent our entire team to actually physically engage over 100 of our clients face to face. We did a 90-minute interview with every customer, a 90-minute interview, all our team. It took us about a month to get 100 interviews with customers. And there was one thing that kept on popping. I listened to every interview, and there's one thing that popped up out of the interview which I thought was like the cornerstone. We asked this question: you could have gone anywhere to buy Facebook advertising. There's probably people who came to you that were better than us, right? They would have been cheaper, they would have been better, but you chose us. Why did you do that? And the thing that came back is, you understood our business. These people that came to us, they didn't understand who we were and what we did. But you guys, you understood what you would do. You understood us, how we worked, how we thought, what we needed to do to implement. That's why we bought you. That understanding, I mean, if I look at a great example of that would be Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The 4th habit is seek to understand and then seek to be understood. Super powerful, that one thing. Understand your market. Be there for your market in the way they converse, they view you. Then they're going to gravitate towards you because they're looking for likeness, right? They're looking for similarities. And so they want to hang with people who understand and get them, right? If you don't get your marketplace, not going to happen. So your existing customers, go and have a chat. Why did you buy? How did you find us? How did you get here? What was the process? How did we first get in touch? Where did you first see us? Ask those questions, because that's going to give you a clue, especially if you're talking to half a dozen of your top clients. That's going to show you where they came from. That's going to give you great ideas. It's also going to give you great marketing material that you can go to market with, so you can actually follow or sell the way your clients buy. Like, you're relevant, right? Which is really key. So that's a really big one. Know who buys.
Know who buys. I think I call it like really getting to know your avatar, and I think that starts that whole journey. And it's actually interviewing your avatar, your customer. Is the best data you could possibly get. Where do you spend? Where do you look online? What do you buy? How do you buy? That whole process. What else could we sell you? What else do you need? What else do you want from us?
What could we create for you?
What could we
add?
What would help you? Like, how could we serve you better? How could we serve you more? And then taking the steps from there and designing, like you said, it doesn't matter what colors you like. It matters what they like. And then start from that purpose. It's so funny. I've come around 360 in the last 4 years with my coaching and consulting business. When I decided to get out of recruitment, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had all these opportunities, and I went and did a business accelerator in Bali, what I now teach. And they said, just go back and ask your top 5 clients why they dealt with you. I'm like, well, it's not going to be relevant. Like, I sold them recruitment. I'm not going to do recruitment anymore. I just go ask them. Like, because you got us, because you knew our business, you understood the model, you could give us sales advice, you could give us marketing advice, you could tell us how to do this, taught us how to do our culture. Actually, you were just like our business coach. Oh, really?
And a lot of recruiters are that.
100%. You got to know the insides and outs and the industry, especially if you're a specialist, everything to do with it. It's and because when I was having a shit day, I could just call you even when it wasn't relevant. And then all of a sudden it spins. And it's that data that you need to be, it's like, okay, cool. What else? How else could I serve you? You could be our business coach. Oh, really? I thought I'd lost you into the ether. Right? Ask that data, understand where they are, build the thing for them, build the people. Like you said to our friend, you've got 15 people, go and ask them what they want. Because you want another 15 people. Actually, you only want 10. You just told us you only need 10. So, and build from there. Hire experts that have done it in the past.
Always higher up.
And it's great to try and know it yourself, but if you really want to make it?
Don't get into it yourself. I mean, it's so complex. There's so many moving pieces, and it's really easy to burn through cash. You really want to have a conversation with your advertiser. You don't want to be just up and running ads very quickly. You want to think about what are you selling. The strategy piece is really important. Sometimes, like when we're doing advertising for clients, we don't run an ad for like 8 weeks, because in that 8-week period, we're trying to get to know, okay, this is your business, this is what you're selling. How do people buy? Let's make sure we're crafting an offer that is relevant for your market, your community. Let's look at what we're doing, and then let's run a test on these sorts of things. And let's make sure that if you do get the inquiry, that they're actually managed. So we need to make sure all that's working, so that when we do run the ads,
leaky leads,
we're out. When we run the ads, we're going to hit the ball out of the park. So I would always hire an expert. I would prefer to hire somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, when we say knowing what they're doing and we're testing the market, that doesn't necessarily it's better if they do or have run ads in your market before. That would be helpful because they've got insider knowledge. But for somebody who asks the right questions, right, who takes you down that path and understands that there is an incremental growth in the investment you're making and there's a return you need to make, then as long as they understand the proven path, then they're okay too. But I would always try and find somebody who knows what they're doing in advertising. Online advertising is a game that changes every day. Google made 460 changes last year to its ad platform. Facebook made over 400 changes last year. The algorithm has significantly made an impact on the marketplace. Now Apple's iOS has made a huge impact. How do you keep up, right? You can't keep up. So you've got to hire somebody who knows what they are doing, and there's great people out there who can help you. You just have to start asking, and you'll find people who are really good at what they do in that market. But it is important. It is a channel that's not going anywhere, and it's, this is where your customers live. Like, how are you marketing on mobile? Not how you're marketing on desktop, because that thing is with me 24/7. Right. Not that I like it being with me for 24/7, but it kind of is, right? And I'm always picking it up, and I'm always paying attention to the messaging. So things like push notifications, Messenger, different platforms of communication right now. We're all into the texting, right? So why aren't we collecting mobile phone numbers for all our clients in our units or in our forms, right? Because we're texting. In Facebook, we're messengering. We're using message apps. They've got a higher conversion rate than an email. Now, email's still very important, still works brilliantly, right? So we want to capture people and communicate on multiple channels. So if you're going to send a message out on LinkedIn, on Facebook Messenger, on DM Instagram, on text message, on voice message, multi-task your messaging or syndicate your messaging, you're going to get much more conversion, better results.
One really important thing from what you said there is, so many people press go on the ads and they don't have that back end system. I can put my hand up. We had a problem. We did 100 lead bundle, the concept of the ads, and we got 300 leads. I'm like, but where's the sales? Oh, the Zap broke. So the Zap didn't hit the system. So the Zap didn't hit our email system. So they didn't actually get the thing they wanted to download. And so the whole nurture sequence went out, and then we didn't have any way to contact them because they hadn't come over. So we found the problem, but the problem was we trusted that it was working and didn't realize that it broke. The other one was then we went to moving to start the chat box, so that the chat picked it up rather than going to email, but then we still got back in, asked for the email. Then the ManyChat broke, but someone wasn't checking, and the social media team didn't check. So it's about really making sure before you press go and getting all excited on it, that you've got your sales system on the back end.
You know what's going to happen.
And one of the other problems I've seen with some clients is the decision maker pressed go on the ads, but didn't tell the customer service or the marketing team. So nobody knew it was their job to check. And
then, so this is the back end of strategy and time frame. So, are things going to break? Absolutely. Always. And marketing is a fickle friend. So you've got to make sure things are fixed and running, but there's always going to be something that breaks, and you've got to pay attention to it. And you're talking about those ideas of generating a 300 lead bundle or selling, communicating by a chat. You've got to make sure that you're monitoring the progression of that. And the other thing is expectation. You know, a lot of people are trying to go in for the kill so quickly when people are going, well, I just kind of need to get to know you a little bit better. Yeah, I just want to know you a little bit better. Is this the right place? Am I looking at the right thing? You know, can you help me out? Understand that there's a process in that
like
engagement.
you said, the 32 points or the time frame that they need to get to know you to warm up the audience. And that you, it's like literally walking in a bar trying to pull one out straight away before you bought them a drink. Like, you need to...
The highest paid marketers in the world are the data analysts. They're the people who actually look at the data are the people who actually make the most money because they can read what the behavior is based on points, right? They can see what's going on based on interactions or behavior or you know, what people are clicking on, what time, when does somebody buy? That zero moment of truth, that study, analyze that data. The people who analyze that data are the most powerful people on the planet. They are the highest paid people in jobs right now because they get to see behavior. And you know,
and it's predictable.
And AI, well, that's sort of coming along. That's starting to interface and give a whole other context. But you have to read the AI. AI in and of itself doesn't work. You have to be able to read what's going on. So there's a human being on the other end of that. There will always be a human being on the end of marketing. It'll never be automated fully or 100%. There'll always be the human element because a computer or an algorithm can't predict behavior, right? It can identify, but it can't forward predict, right? So that needs a human being to do that. So the computers aren't that smart. It'll be a very long time before that happens. You know, I think we're probably about 20 years away from anything like that really occurring.
At least we've got one job that's safe.
We've got a safe job, So analysing your data, looking at your numbers. The more you get into those things in your business, that's where you're going to make the big changes.
Know your numbers. Constantly review. I think the key thing that came out of that just then was always be going back and reviewing. Know that something's going to break, but you want to catch the break as soon as possible. So
systems, processes, everything.
How often should someone be reviewing?
I want to know what's going on daily. Like I want to see. Like sometimes there'll be ways of flagging things, right? You'll know picking up some of those things should have been picked up the day the ad ran. Like as soon as you had the first 3 or 4 leads, okay, where are they? Are the emails firing off? Is the Zap working? You want to catch it as whoever's in charge should be catching those things like at the time, not waiting a week and going, oh, that's a week of leads gone, right? When that problem could have been solved or actually identified by somebody who went, hang on a second, I just want to make sure that this is going all the way through the sequence. So maybe I need to jump in and opt into my ad to see if it's working, if it goes through, or maybe I need to give a test to 2 or 3 people. Is it working? Does that fire off? Yes. I've been in the same situation where we've had a piece that's broken. It happened to me a week ago. And it, after the fact was too late. But now we know next time we do this, that piece will not be broken again, right? So now we've fixed that piece, and it's another adjustment, You're just going to get better and better at doing it.
Don't trust it. Like our Zap broke after 3 weeks. So it was working fine. But then because someone logged into social media, we had to change a password. And no one... I didn't know that was going to fuck the Zap.
So there's always somebody that's going to check. Somebody always has to check. And you want to look at your feedback and you want to catch those things in as close to real time as possible. But these are like little adjustments, and somebody who knows what they're doing should actually be aware of it. If you've got
an ads manager doing it, then...
And the ad manager should know. And if the ad manager doesn't, well, they only need to make the mistake once. And they're going to go, okay, well, next time we do this, we have to make sure... So marketing is something that you have to invest in. It's not, and that's the other thing is, you're here for, how long are you here for? How long are you in business for? Right? Are you in business for a month or 2 months or 6 months or 12 months? You've also got to picture out what the relationship is, what the value that you're building with your customers. Marketing advertising is always going to change. The platforms are going to change. There's going to be new places to run ads all the time. At the end of the day, we're going to have to learn them. So we've got to get better at communication, and the best place to do that is hire people who've got skills who are better than you, because you should be directing.
Hire better than you.
You should be directing the business, not being in the working motion of the business.
All the time.
So
give me your best recommendations on books or podcasts that a business owner should consume in around marketing and advertising.
I Love Marketing by Dean Jackson and Joe Polish is probably one of the best business podcasts, marketing podcasts out there. Seth Godin's podcast, anything that Seth does is probably the best marketing strategy ever. He's got a beautiful thing called Startup with Seth. I would highly recommend that. Any of his books would be recommended. The one book that I think, and I keep coming back to it, and people always ask me, what's the book? I've got plenty of books that I would recommend. The one book that kind of changed my life is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was probably one of the greatest business books ever written. There is a new edition in the How to Win Friends and Influence in the Digital Age. That's the new edition. I haven't
read it yet.
Yeah.
I've got to get it.
It's the same as the previous edition, it just incorporates some of the internet or social media stuff. But the principles in that book are timeless. It's one of those books that I give a lot away. But there's another unusual book. It's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Yes.
And the reason why I love that book is the story is so poignant that the journey that the person takes in that book brings them back to where they were in the beginning, and that's where the riches were. So it's like sometimes we're literally looking far off into the distance of where opportunity is, when right now is the moment. So that's probably a great book. It's a great story. But Alchemist is a fantastic book. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Podcasts. I love marketing. In Australia, the Small Business Big Marketing is a great marketing podcast because he interviews lots of founders. Tim Reed. But look, you should always be reading, and that just changes your thinking. Even if you have like a routine, even you read for 10 minutes a day, just something that's nourishing, supportive, encouraging. It doesn't matter what you read. That's going to steer you in a pretty cool way in your life. So it's pretty important. So everybody's got a favorite book. But I keep going back to How to Win Friends and Influence People, and The Alchemist is a great story. Yeah. It's probably one of the best business lessons around. And there's heaps of other great books that I'd like to mention, but my library would be packed. Everybody else's library would be packed. I'm going to make Amazon rich by telling everybody, these are the books you want to buy.
I'll use my affiliate link when we put them in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Now, how can everyone consume more of you? Where do we find you?
Just go to consultingunleashed.com. There's podcasts, there's videos. If you just type in John Logar in Google, there's a YouTube channel. There's hundreds of videos on there. Search optimized everywhere. You can just Google me. But if you go to consultingunleashed.com, you can see a lot of cool stuff in there. There's lots of training and video and a lot of entrepreneurial things. But that's where they can come and see me.
Love it. And is there any parting words for the listeners today?
Be kind. Be kind. Be kind to yourself. We're living in some really interesting times, and we don't do enough for ourselves. So I think the first person we've got to be really good to is us, and the second person we've got to be good to is everybody else. And because we're in a world that is very demanding and very challenging, and we've come through some pretty incredible emotional experiences in the last year or so, and I think we forget that just being nice and being mindful of that kindness goes a long way. Enrich your life, enrich everybody else's life. Just be good to yourself and be good to others.
Oh, I think we're out on that one. That's the mic drop moment. Bang. Well, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.
This has been an absolute pleasure.
That was a blast.
There's so much in there. So everyone, remember, you now need to run along and get the one action point that you're going to take.
That's it. One thing.
One thing that you're going to take out of this podcast and you're going to take action on. And I'd love to see in the comments what that one thing is. Okay, guys, we'll see you on the flip side. As always, if you feel like there's anyone that could get value from listening to this podcast, needs a little bit of help with their advertising and marketing, make sure you share this episode to them.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jay.
Hey there, barrel chasing business owners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the show. What I would love for you to do, if you feel like you got any value or entertainment out of this episode at all, is to leave us a 5-star review and comment below so that we can share the message and impact as many business owners like you as possible. Thanks.